only starting to scratch the surface of what a peer-to-peer open financial system can do to the world. I think increasing economic bandwidth to each other. It's the same like if we increase information bandwidth, the world became a much better place because we could communicate with each other much better. With DeFi, we can not only communicate, but we can transact in much faster ways. That's with blockchain in general, but DeFi is just this financial layer, which makes it so that we can, instead of just communicating, we can also send value to each other very quickly. Like supply chains can communicate with each other in much more efficient ways. Trust and risk can be categorized much better.
Welcome to the GoldRepublic podcast. My name is Bart Brands.
And I'm Alexei Jordanov. In our weekly podcast, we invite guests from all over the world to get valuable insights
into the emergence of a new monetary system through the lens of precious metals, cryptocurrencies, and other financial instruments.
Welcome to the GoldRepublic podcast. Today we have the honor of welcoming Amadeo Brands. Amadeo is not related to Bart Brands. This is not nepotism. We didn't bring you on the show because you were called Brands.
No.
Welcome to the show, Amadeo. We've met actually quite some while back, right? We met in the ecosystem in 2017.
In Heerlen, all the way.
In Heerlen, yeah, of all places. For people not knowing, who are not from the Netherlands, it's kind of like a side of the Netherlands where you don't often go, if I politely can say so. And back then, a lot of things changed till now, actually, right? So first, yes. Who are you, and what's your background? How did you get into crypto in the first place?
Yeah, thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to be here at the GoldRepublic, and nice to have a conversation and a catch up which we do regularly throughout the years, and it's nice to now record that. I'm Amadeo Brands. I studied actually economics and computer science, and before I got into crypto, I was actually working as a consultant for banks and for like insurance companies, etc. And already very early on, I was like, this is a little bit inefficient. A lot of like bureaucrats deciding what reality is of certain outcomes, which they have no idea how to structure the IT systems around it that they're trying to control. And then very early on, I actually already found Bitcoin in 2012 to 2013, but then I didn't fully understand it. So it's just like I got some for a job that I did in when I was still living in Asia, and I kind of a little bit forgot about it. And then Ethereum came out, and then I got like super excited about like, wow, this is really really interesting what we can do now. We can actually start building decentralized financial systems, so we're going to talk about later on, or we can design communities and coordinate our energy and monetary energy in a better way. And that's how I got started very early on. And after my consultancy time, I joined a crypto hedge fund where I did some security, I did some the IT infrastructure setup there as well. And that's how I got started full time, and been in it ever since. Couldn't let go of it.
That is actually where we met. When we met, that was also in 2017, I think, maybe early 2018, while you were working for CeFi Capital, and that's when we met in the financial district in Amsterdam.
Correct. Yeah, that's also how I met Bart, and how we got in contact with each other. And then it was still and still is a very new and a very explosive and very rapidly evolving space. And I'm just trying to catch up and trying to process all the information and put it in the right perspectives.
So Amadeo, you talked about monetary energy. I think I like that term because it kind of also symbolizes the shift we are in right now. We were able, throughout the evolution in the financial system, to always find new ways of securing something which is financial through energy, right? And I think that's also like where it comes with Bitcoin, a proof of work, which is basically mainly securing a network through the incapacity of duplicating a certain amount of energy to temper it, so to change it and to take control of it. When we look at the evolution of finance within the crypto ecosystem, we had Bitcoin in the beginning. It had shortcomings that Vitalik Buterin and his team then tried to solve through Ethereum, right? When did you first encounter Ethereum, and what difference do you see for its potential at its core DNA?
I think that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all different, crypto assets all fulfill a different function in our ecosystem. Similar how we have different, precious metals for different use cases. We will also have different crypto assets for different use cases as well. And like Ethereum, when it started, it was in a time where actually a lot of experiments were starting. So it was very hard to say that Ethereum is actually then, wow, this is something real, because you had a lot of like Mastercoin, or a lot of coins were actually starting in that time, Litecoin and all these other coins, and a lot of coins we don't even remember anymore started. And Ethereum actually clicked with me, because what I liked about it, it's that we were trying to look more like, okay, how can we coordinate ourselves better as a community? And I think that's what the Bitcoin community was trying to do, and the Ethereum community as well. I saw it in like 2016. I really started to look deeper into it. And already early on, like 2015, I already looked into it a little bit. I even saw the ICO page when it went up. I didn't invest, unfortunately. But at that time, I didn't really fully understand it yet. But in 2016, I really started to understand what Ethereum was and what it could be used for. And in my opinion, it's a more efficient way of coordinating value flows to each other, and a better way of coordinating a distributed ledger where we all can trust the data that's inputted, and which we can then see that is the reality of a certain system or a certain outcome. And that's what I saw in it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that brings us to then, I think also like the next point, which is DeFi, right? Decentralized finance. Yeah. And that episode will be heavily, for the listeners and the viewers, be just focused on that. First of all, I think it would be good to first define what decentralized finance is, which is the short acronym of it is, not acronym, but abbreviation is DeFi. What is the difference between centralized finance and decentralized finance, and what is decentralized finance?
Yes. So for that analogy, I want to go back a little bit of like, what is the difference between our current banking, like, I will use terms like CeFi and DeFi. And I first start a little bit understanding a little bit what CeFi is. CeFi I call centralized finance, which we have today. So before I make the bridge to DeFi, let's get a bit of an understanding of what CeFi is. CeFi is basically a way where we deposit our money into our bank accounts, and we trust a centralized system controlled by a group of bureaucrats that decide what is your balance, basically. Well, and you can say, well, I deposited $1,000 yesterday, and now I only have 900. So then you could go to the bank, or you could make a dispute, and then a bureaucrat will still decide, well, no, this or this or this happened, right? And that's a centralized system. So it's decided, the reality of the system is decided by a bureaucrat. And then fintech came, and fintech kind of still builds on that legacy technology stack with a bureaucrat somewhere, but basically builds a better UI, like a user interface. So fintech is just a layer on top of the centralized financial system that builds a little bit better user experience, I would say.
Optimizes the old world, basically. Or the traditional system.
Yeah, and what's really funny, a lot of fintech companies eventually all want to become a bank, right? Because that's what you need to actually maybe do something innovative, but you still need to go to that legacy system and build on top of that. DeFi, decentralized finance, is trying to take a little bit of a different route. So they say, instead of trusting a bureaucratic base layer, so instead of trusting a centralized system, we're basically building a new system, a decentralized financial system, or a open financial system. Before, the term DeFi was used a lot was not sure, like, is it gonna called open finance? Is it gonna called DeFi or whatever? And actually, the term DeFi is just 1 year 1 year old now, or 1.5 years. And DeFi, decentralized finance, basically, instead of a bureaucrat deciding what the reality of a ledger is, it's code. So that, like, when you do a transaction, the reality kind of updates itself. So you need to instead trust a bureaucrat or a politician or something like that, but you can trust the code, which is open to everybody and inspectable by everybody to see what the rules are in the system. And that's very short of what DeFi is. Is that clear?
For me, it is. I hope for the listeners and viewers, it is too. So, what are, let's say, the major components? And today, DeFi is mainly driven by Ethereum. Ethereum, by the date, is, I think, 25% of dominance in the crypto market to this day. Today, the 12th of August, 2021. And it grew really exponentially in the last year and a half. Right, it went from maybe $1 billion in 2018, mid of 2018, I think, and then actually went up to, I think, 80 billion to this day in total amount of money funded in pools, projects, all kinds of DEXs, decentralized exchanges,
exactly.
and so on and so forth. So, what are, to give an overview, the different elements within DeFi, and also layers that are built on top of Ethereum?
So what I, as you saw, I just looked in my phone, like, what is the current total value locked in DeFi? And the nice thing is, in this financial system, we can very easily see this, and it's all captured by on-chain data, and everybody can actually inspect it. And right now, it's $80 billion dollars locked, total value locked in decentralized financial products. And it really became very, very huge in the beginning of 2020, actually at the start of the Corona crisis, when I think a lot of people like myself or other developers were just pushed inside of their house and were not allowed to leave and just could code.
As if there was any difference as a developer.
I guess maybe, but it did cause like a big boom. But this decentralized financial system, it's not just emerged in 2020, but it's been built up for like years, starting with MakerDAO and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the question is, like, what is the stack, right? What is the digital financial stack, or what is the kind of building blocks that we use for DeFi, right? So in order to understand that, we first need to understand a little bit. I hope that the listeners do understand that. But there's a lot of amazing resources. Basically, the base layer that we have in DeFi that's what I call like a layer 1. So it's like a settlement layer. And that's the difference with fintech, right? So in decentralized finance, we have a decentralized settlement layer. So in this case, it's Ethereum, right? Ethereum is used as a decentralized settlement layer for most of the DeFi protocols, right? So that's the first stack. We need to have a settlement layer. Then we have an asset layer, which actually builds like different assets, like an ERC20 token or an ERC721 token or another token, right? That's built on top of that. Then we have different protocols like Aave, MakerDAO, etc. And then on top of that, we have different applications built on top of that, maybe like Axie Infinity or games or other Yearn Finance, which is an interface again to these
NFTs,
protocols.
For example, art NFTs.
NFTs are also part of the
assets.
Well, an NFT is an asset. Well, an NFT is basically built on an ERC721 asset, so a non-fungible token asset, but it's mostly used via an application, via a protocol, right? So that's the different layers that you get. And then on top of that, you get different aggregation layers through the system. I actually wrote, maybe we can put it in the description, but I wrote I proofreaded an article in the Federal Reserve economic paper written by Professor Fabian Schar, which I proofreaded when I was doing my DeFi 101 and DeFi 201 course at the Ivan on Tech Academy. And there, these layers are explained in more depth. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what is, I think, very important for everybody that's listening, all these layers, it sounds very technical, but actually anybody can participate and build on top of these layers. So if you're somebody that likes to make videos or podcasts, like that's what we're doing right now. You're also participating in this ecosystem. We're all participating in an ecosystem, trying to use some of these building blocks and pushing the system forward. So anybody can function in any of the layers. Yeah.
Just to interject maybe something, because, well, you two guys are totally into it, right? Right. And I'm much more maybe a bystander, even though I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. The tech seems hard. And so the question would be, when are we at the time where we interface with this technology without knowing that we are? Because isn't that one of the moments where we have this breakthrough and we can see everybody flooding into this space?
That's a very good question, and it's part like what I'm now building on. So I'm now the CTO for a company called CrescoFin, and CrescoFin is trying to build a challenger bank in Geneva, Switzerland. And it's like a similar what Revolut is. It's like kind of a Revolut clone. And with that, we hold custody of people's assets, and they can via our custody invest in DeFi, right? If they want to. But ideally, we want the people to do that themselves, right? So it's the question is how much people want to be I call it like self-sovereignty. How much people actually want to take control of their own finances. And I think I think maybe the hockey stick will come when more and more people will want to become self-sovereign, right? I think that's when we probably get a hockey stick. Or when a lot of other protocols start to build protocols like what we're now doing with CrescoFin, and then give them a higher yield. But then we build another closed system, and people just go from one closed system to the other closed system, which is maybe a little bit better. But ideally, what I would like to see is a world where more and more people take care of their own sovereignty.
Yeah, well, the reason, and if I can expand on that, why I asked that question is, I think a lot of people are into cryptocurrency. It's a part of their portfolio. But why do we buy cryptocurrency? We buy it because we believe that in the future it's going to be worth more. We have a relatively small group of people that understand what they're buying and want to build on a technology. But then again, for the larger group of investors, like myself, we want to see this technology usable in the sense that, I click on an app and what happens in the background, I don't care about, as long as the app works. Mm. And so, well, first of all, maybe wanting people to become sovereign in their financial situation, of course, it's a really nice goal. But if you can offer people a easier alternative, they'll probably take it.
No, of course,
right?
and that's also what we're trying to do, right? With CrescoFin, we're trying to do a little bit of both. So we're creating a banking alternative where you can just treat it as a normal bank like N26 or Revolut. And with that, you also will have very easy access to DeFi yields. And we can offer higher yields than on a bank account because we got away a lot of middlemen and a lot of like fancy offices and all that stuff, right? So you're getting higher yields. And you have a banking alternative. But via that, we will also try to push people like, do you even want to get a higher yield? Well, try to take your matters in your own hands. Try to mint your own digital representation of your fiat asset on a new technology stack, on a decentralized financial stack, and take control of it yourself. Here's a guide of things that you could do, but please take control of it yourself as much as possible. And I think it's maybe a little bit of a noble goal, but I think it's very important for us to educate people and to take more control of our own assets. Because it's a little bit funny to me because we're all working very hard. Like if aliens would come to the world right now and they're like, oh, what is everybody doing? Everybody's so busy. Everybody's like working hard and moving from one place to the other, but at the end of the day, we're trying to create value for each other, and we're trying to hoard a bit of money to feel safe, I guess, right? But most people don't really understand what they're working so hard for. So this fiat that we're now working for, that's just printed by a government, everybody's working so hard for it, but nobody really understands what it is. And I hope that with the things I'm building, that I can change it a little bit, that people will start to question everything around themselves and want to verify the things that they're buying. Same with gold or precious metals. You can verify this is an actual precious metal or something that I can actually store myself. Same with crypto. People should understand, like, okay, I'm in crypto, but maybe I should not buy Dogecoin or this other weird meme coins, right? Maybe I should buy something like Ethereum that is a base layer for a whole new potential new financial system that we're building. And maybe I want to invest in this in Aave or in another like lending protocol, which we can talk about later on, because that actually contributes to a more liquid system which then more people around the world can use, right? So I think that's important for us to understand, like what are we doing with our money, and how can we increase it? If you just put your money at an IG bank, etc., where you mostly pay negative interest rates, then the bank makes the money over your back. And like the bank now gives you 0.5% negative interest rate if you have more than 100,000 euros in Netherlands, which is insane. But to their investors, they show, look, we have $1 billion in deposits and we're making this amount of money. And we're paying off all these, all big fancy offices, et cetera, et cetera. But where in DeFi, you can just take control of your own assets and without the bank interfering, make a nice yield on your deposits.
Mm-hmm. So this is one of the key major advantages that you just pointed out. Are there any others compared now, like to traditional finance, a part of this part?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of advantages, and we're only starting to scratch the surface of what a peer-to-peer open financial system can do to the world. I think increasing economic bandwidth to each other. It's the same like if we increase information bandwidth, the world became a much better place because we could communicate with each other much better. With DeFi, we can not only communicate, but we can transact in much faster ways. That's with blockchain in general, but DeFi is just this financial layer, which makes it so that we can, instead of just communicating, we can also send value to each other very quickly. Like supply chains can communicate with each other in much more efficient ways. Trust and risk can be categorized much better ways.
Yeah, much more data overall, and the connectivity of it, and also like the fact that we can now put assets that also before were not possible to digitize, it is now also possible, and to capture the value of things in a more accurate and efficient way. On the other hand, what would you say are the risks? We've seen recently, like 2 days ago, Poly Network, for example, there was an attacker who, he just got $600 million as a jackpot. And he actually gave it back, I think.
Yes.
It was also like this is why I love crypto. It's never boring. There's never a dull day in the crypto world. But regardless of that, this is not the first incident, and it will not be the last one.
Mm-hmm.
What is there to be learned? What is it also for people to be aware?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, you need to be self-sovereign. So you need to be in control of your own security. You need to be in control of your own brains. You need to use your brain a little bit more. Don't just ape into stuff, right? So that hack of the $600 million, I kind of felt coming. There is probably going to be more hacks. I'm part of a group called Rekt.
Oh, really?
Rekt.
Are you part of the Rekt newsletter?
Well, I'm helping. Yeah, we're like, it's a group of people, and we're all working together to when something like this happens, to jump on it and to produce articles and videos. Actually, Hopium Diaries. Awesome. If you maybe saw that.
Yeah, I didn't know that you were a part of it. It's awesome.
Well, everybody is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
everybody's part
community.
of it.
It's a community.
It's
effort.
a community. Yes. So it's economic bandwidth that again increases with connections to everybody, and it creates this strong community called Rect News, which is founded by Julien Boutrop, is also a French guy as well. In the beginning, it was a very small group. I was also there, just very enthusiastic, looking at all these cool things that were happening and all these hacks that were happening. And a couple of times things were saved because it's more of like a white hat hacker group. Yeah, and we publish all the information in Rect, and you can just see the leaderboard of all the hacks that happened and all the security audits that were not good and things like that. But I think we need to take more control of these things ourselves. And I laugh a little bit when I hear in America like investor protection and all that stuff. I think again that's what I meant. Like we need to be more self-sovereign, and we need to take these matters in our own hands. Right? Why I don't need a government to tell me what I can invest in, what not. I want to take control of that myself. And I want to determine if I want to invest in it or not. And if something goes wrong, yeah, it's my fault. Yeah.
And isn't that one of the things that, well, I love the promise, right? I love the promise of decentralized finance, and I love the promise or the potential of being in control of your own finances, and also having to take the responsibility if things goes wrong. Mm-hmm. But if stuff goes wrong, then it's much easier for a very large group of people to just point to someone, it's your fault, and you have to make us whole. I think, isn't that the battle between CeFi, DeFi, and also maybe part of the human condition, where you have a small group of people that yearn for freedom, also financial freedom. I'm one of those people, by the way. But there's a very big group of people that feels like it's just too much work. And if we can also, to fall directly and have a part 2 of that question, how can people take control of their financials? For example, using DeFi, because it's more than just opening an app. It contains what you have to do.
I think it's really being part of a new digital nation state. Not nation state, but part of a new digital community, so to say. So the best thing you can do is just to go on Telegram for like Telegram groups or forums and try to find a community that you connect with, and there that connect with your values, and then try to learn from each other, and the community then will help of you getting started, or buying your first assets, or getting rid of your your evil bank account or something like that, right? And to answer the first question, to answer the second, take control of it yourself, and try to be part of it also yourself. And the first question is, I would say that you need to in DeFi things are pseudo-anonymous, right? So the hack that happened, the hacker actually gave back most of the assets. 600 million were stolen, and now around 300 million already given back because they chased him somewhere. But this hacker, like if you also read the article, Rec News, it's a bit of a comedy, because he seemed like a child, the guy that did it. It's very interesting space. But we can track everything, so we can see all the money movements, we can see where it goes, and we can track these people down by ourselves and get the money back. And it's kind of what happened. And that, it's like a whole detective scene by itself that happened yesterday to get that guy and see to pressure him to give it back. And he gave it partially back. But it was a big scandal for sure. But I think having that transparent on an open ledger, everybody can see, like you put money into this protocol. These people said oh, you can trust us because it was a multi-sig, right? So what happened, if you look into the code very, very clearly, there was 2 out of 3 multi-sig. So this means 2 people could actually steal that money. For some reason, those keys got leaked and somebody got possession of those keys, or in a different way. There's still some debates how he did it, but it got leaked. But it was clear that that bridge that they were using, this $600 million hack, was not really that safe. And everybody kind of knew it. Like if you go there, like it's very unsafe. But if you actually go to the base Ethereum layer, again, so how close you are to the main settlement layer, with at the least possible like building blocks, etc., the more secure you are. If you go into this dark territory of like where this hack also happened, this was there were bridges to Neom, there were bridges to Binance Smart Chain, there were bridges to all these other, in my opinion, a little bit not really trustless blockchain layers, right? And there you get also different cultures, different people with maybe different intents than people that are really trying to build something different, right? And I think that's very important to watch out for. It's even part of the money was on the Chinese state blockchain, which is another very interesting topic. China is probably gonna go. Their central bank digital currency is building out very fast, and they're probably one of the first that is also going to introduce smart contract technology on their financial layer, on their base layer, as a centralized digital currency. And that, yeah, a lot of things to unpack there, but yeah.
Well, let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Actually, my one of my questions was as well, how would you say the DeFi, which is still, as we just said, it's 80 billion, but it's growing tremendously fast, not to be ignored, and maybe in 10 years it's gonna be tenfold that or even more, and reaching the trillions and other big markets, financial markets out there. So how does it integrate within the current system? Now you mentioned China as one case, which is the earliest, and what also most people would agree with, also the scariest and the most worrying kind of development, because you will tell us a bit more about it because of its nature.
Yeah, the Chinese central bank digital currency like excites me and worries me, and a lot of mixed feelings about it. They've been building this for years. They saw what was coming with technology. They saw what was happening, and they, like, the art of war. What they basically did, they gave the power to their WeChats, to their Alibabas, etc. They gave them the power to be a bank. So instead of in Europe and in the U.S., where banks have this siloed system that they're keeping very legacy, keep it very like high barriers to entry for everybody. What they kind of did in China was just open it up and give these companies banking licenses. And it's really smart because of that they have full control over them, because there's a lot of compliance they force upon them. And they did that now for a bit. And they're like, okay, thank you for all the innovation that these private companies did. And they're pulling it now all back into their central.
The public sector.
Yeah. So they first gave it to the public sector. So they first gave it to the WeChat, to the Alibabas, etc.
The private sector.
Yeah, sorry. The private
they first
sector.
gave it to the private sector.
Yeah, sorry. They first gave it to a private sector, and
or enabled more.
Public. Yeah, they first gave it to corporations, etc. And then the innovation just went much faster, which we also now see in DeFi. The innovation that DeFi has is so much faster, and you can see the US is way far behind. Europe is a little bit more advanced in it, but they're also very far behind. And then China is the most far behind, but still way behind. Actually, that we have right now, but what we're using as a crypto people, that's already way more advanced than China has. But what Europe and the US has is like laughable. It's not really that advanced. And basically, what you see is, so they gave it to these companies, and then these companies started to innovate, and they're like, oh, okay, nice, this is all we need. And now they're centralizing everything again, and they're going to distribute this to their Belt and Road initiative. So they're going to do trade financing with all their trading partners. They're going to roll it out very slowly, and that's how will the they will try to compete with the US dollar. But this is, I think, still over like 100 years or 50 years, like time frame until they roll it out. So it's going along very slowly. Same with the European digital currency they're trying to push to us, which I think we should be very worried about. Like, okay, what's going on there? It should be democratic, privacy, etc. That's what they're saying. But if you look into the code and what's happening, it's not really that advanced. In Sweden, they're also building pretty nice central bank digital currency, but it's also not. The privacy is also, there's always a backdoor, right? And that's, if you watch Hopium Diaries from Rec News, the video that I would love everybody to watch, you can see there this battle that will emerge very soon between the world leaders of like, oh, I have a better centralized digital currency. Others, no, I have a better centralized bank digital currency. And at the end of the day, the people, they're like, well, wait a minute. Why would I use a centralized bank digital currency? I can use this decentralized layer and gives me more freedom. So I think that's probably better. So I hope we will evolve to that way, because decentralized entities, they cannot compete with the innovation that we can do as people, as like an innovative developers.
That is actually one of maybe the dark side of blockchain technology, is that you can use it for good to free people, give them their own sovereignty, or as in China, and also the plans of the United States and Europe, you can use it to control and track and trace everything. There was just approved a infrastructure bill in the United States, and I know it because it cost $3.5 trillion.
5.5.
Oh, which the United
Billion.
States? No,
Trillion,
3.5 trillion. Which
Three and a half, yeah.
Which the United States doesn't have, so they'll just print it. But one of the things that is in the bill is tracking, tracing, blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question, of course, would be, do you think these initiatives of legislators will have any success in stopping what you rightfully say is a private sector that is light years ahead of public sector in implementing blockchain technology and DeFi making it CeFi again?
Yeah, well, they will try, but when Satoshi went away, he's like, we kicked the hornet's nest. It's a little bit too early, and then he disappeared, right? The same thing is now with DeFi. I mean, we need to work very hard that when that happens, we build this got a bit, maybe it sounds a bit anarchistic, but we need to build nation-state resistant systems that cannot be controlled by any central party. So this means that we need to design the system so that when a rule like that comes, it's just like, well, good luck stopping it, but you can't, right? So then you really have to exclude people, and then the United States is basically shooting themselves in the foot if they do this. So, the bill is passed, but I still think we have a fighting chance of, and I think also the Congress will realize, like, wait a minute, let's look what's happening in China. Let's look what's happening in Europe. We can either say, like, okay, we have that. America still has the best financial system in the world, like the most advanced for this case, like in the volume and stuff, and like in Wall Street, it's still where it happens, right? So why would they? And the reason why it happens there is because they have a financial system that that you kind of can trust, right? Like like when you go to Wall Street, that if you buy a stock or something, that there is some sort of a oversight. Although we don't really like trust that much anymore in that system, but still, like compared to the Chinese stock exchange, New York Stock Exchange is a little bit more trustworthy and open and etc. So America, in my opinion, should really go to the route like, well, wait a minute, China is developing a central bank digital currency. We're going to work together with this DeFi, this new decentralized financial ecosystem. Most of the volume in the decentralized financial ecosystem already happens in US dollars. and now it's USD Tether or USDC or DAI. It's all pegged to the dollar. So they could just say, like, we're going to adopt this, we're going to work together. And then the US would gain a lot of momentum from this. So my hope is that they will realize that. And if they don't realize that, then we will have to become a group of like shadowy super coders, how they called it, right? So then the ecosystem will go a little bit more on a different side. We'll go to more other emerging economies, which is also not a bad thing. So at every outcome, it will not really go away. It will be harder. So like if the US is completely going to ban everything to do with DeFi, it will be very hard for me or anybody to live there or to build a business in DeFi. But then we'll just go to other places.
That will mean that the next superpower could be a country or a group of countries that really adopt or adopt DeFi because it has so much potential. Would that be a correct out?
Yeah, I fully agree with that. And I think even we're like, one of my favorite books had Sovereign Individual, How to Survive the New Digital Revolution, written in 1997. And it's still very up to date till like what's happening right now. Is that we probably the cost of starting a nation state is actually much lower, right? The cost of actually starting a country is much lower. So maybe what would happen is that all these people like ourselves that are a little bit more libertarian, they kind of maybe want to form their own group or their own community, and they will all probably go towards one country. I'm not saying it's like El Salvador or something like that, but it's probably somewhere where indeed a country will open up their doors, and then you see all that brain power and all those educated people, instead of going to the US or instead of going to Europe, go to that nation state or that country that is more open-minded towards these technologies. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.